So I have a genuine question for you guys today. Why do y'all keep limiting my father? I'm just kidding. But I do want to know why we're allowing our fears to limit what God can do in our lives. God is so big, God is so wonderful, and He's so amazing. And He can do all things but fail. So I want to know why we're limiting the things that we're asking God for, believing God for, and why are we telling ourselves what can and can't be in our lives. Now, I can say for myself, I have placed limitations on God, but the more that God challenges me with His word and in my prayers, I'm beginning to believe bigger and bigger for God. A lot of times I say things that seem outrageous, and people will say, "How do you think that's going to happen?" And I always respond, "I don't know, but my Father knows." And I believe that God is wanting us to believe bigger in this season because when we believe bigger, it allows us to increase our faith. And when God manifests those things, we're able to see God in a greater way. Now, it's not always about material things. Sometimes it's about the how we can help people, right? So one of my biggest prayers right now is that I get to a point in my life where I can pay someone's rent or mortgage every month. So I want to be able to use Kingdom First as a way to bless people and be able to give back to people. Now, am I at that level yet? No. But I will be at that level one day because I believe that I will be, and I'm asking God to be used by Him to be able to do that. So what does that mean? That means that I begin to recognize God's power. God is so big. He can do anything. Like there is nothing that my God can't do. And I want you to start reminding yourself of that each day, that there is nothing that God can't do. See, it's not about the materialistic things. Yes, it's going to take money to be able to pay someone's rent every month. But who's to say that God won't give me sponsorships to be able to do it? Who's to say that God won't bless me to just have the means to do it? I want to be able to do it because I want people to see God moving on their behalf. I want people to start seeing God do great and mighty things in their lives. Now, I don't just look to receive blessings. I think about how those blessings can be used that God gives me. So when God gives me a bigger reach, that means that that's more money coming in. More money comes in, meaning I can do more for people. Now, I have had moments in my life where God has told me to buy clothes and give them away to the poor, or to buy laptops for back to school and give them away. God gives us opportunities to see what we will do with what He has given us. And sometimes, if we're not obedient enough, then we can fumble those blessings because we just start buying the things that we want. And then God is saying, that's not what I asked you to do with it. So we want to make sure that when we're trusting God for bigger things, that we have a heart of gratitude, we have a heart of service, and it's not just having a heart of pleasing ourselves. And so we don't want to just recognize His power. We also want to stop putting God in a box. So we don't want to just assume that only God can, maybe one day long as God can pay my bills, that's enough. That's not enough. That's limiting God. That's saying that all God is capable of doing is paying your bills and that's it, instead of allowing you to pay other people's bills. So we got to stop saying that God is only capable of opening our eyes or allowing us to see a new day, or sometimes we limit God when it comes to our health, and we don't think that we can get better or things won't be better for us in a new season. Like God is so big. God created the universe and everything in it. And if that means He created all of that in a short amount of time, think about the years that you have left. Think about how God can use those years to glorify Him. Think about how He can use your years of service to help others and to be generous and to be kind to other people. Like God can use you in such a special way if you allow Him to. So remember that God is the same God that created this whole universe, and He created you and me. And when He created us, He said that we were good. So what can you do to show God that you want to be used by Him today? The next thing is let go of your fears. Yes, you may not know how things will happen. No, you may not know how fast it will happen or when it will happen. I'm not concerned about the actual date when I'll be able to start paying people bills. I'm not concerned about that. All I'm concerned about is the faith that I'm putting into making it or seeing it happen. I'm concerned about my prayers and how I'm trying to be obedient with what God has given me so that He can say, well done, and bless me with more so that I can do more for more people. So we have to be aware of how we're stewarding what God has given us, because even our fears, like if you're stewarding fear or if you're allowing fear to overcome you, then you'll never step out on faith. You'll never allow God to show you what He can do because you're so stuck in the mindset that it won't happen. Well, I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna happen, and when it happens, I pray that I'll be able to bless one of you guys. But until then, I'll keep being obedient in the things that God has called me to do so that I can show God that I am ready to be used by Him, so that I can show God that I'm ready for Him to do even greater things within me. So we have to release fear. Fear limits our faith. We must replace fear with trust. God has not given us a spirit of fear. 2 Timothy 1:7. So we have to remember that. Use the word, meditate on the word. The word will speak to us in so many ways and allow us to hear God's voice. And we have to combat those negative thoughts. We have to combat that fear and replace it with the trust that we have in God, because we know that God will never put more on us than we can bear. We also know that God is a trustworthy God because He is not a man that He can lie. So the next thing we have to do is begin to pray bold prayers. So that's when I said, I want to be able to pay, to give away money every month to pay somebody's rent or mortgage. That is a bold prayer, because where's the money coming from, right? How am I going to have the funds to be able to do that? But that's not for my concern. All I'm called to do is pray about it. If God places something in your heart that seems so big that you can't accomplish, pray about it, because more than likely God has placed that desire in your heart so that you can start believing Him for it to happen. Don't begin to question it and say, well, why am I even thinking this, or how is this even possible? That's no longer your concern. When God places something in your heart, begin to pray about it. Begin to be bold about it in your request. Begin to really seek Him for what He wants us to know. So in Ephesians 3:20, it says, God can do exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask or imagine. So ask big. Ask big. I mean, the worst that He could tell you is not right now. Maybe a little bit later. Let me keep refining you. Let me keep transforming you. Let me keep making you a better person first. Let me keep seeing where your heart is at when it's concerning me. But it's not impossible. God can do all things. And then the next is surrender the outcome. Like I said, I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know where the money's going to come from. I don't know if I'll ever have sponsorships. I don't know any of that. But what I do know is that I can surrender my plans to God. I surrender my desires to God because I can't figure it out on my own. I could stay up all night, every day of the week, and still not come up with an answer. But with God, all things are possible. So I have to trust God to work it out His way and in His timing. Proverbs 3:5-6. It reminds us to lean on God. So I had to lean on God and let God be in control. It's about God controlling the narrative. It's about God getting the glory. So when we do things on our own accord, we feel like we're the ones that did it. We don't want that, and God doesn't want that. When God gives us something, it's going to be a testimony, and we need to be able to say that God showed up for us, God made it happen, and that's the reason why it's happening. So we have to relinquish what we think the outcome should be. We have to surrender our outcomes to God and say, well, God, if you place this on my heart, then make it come to be. However you see fit, make it come to be. And then we have to realize that God is limitless. Don't limit what God can do in your life. Don't limit it at all. Allow God to give you the desires of your heart. Allow God to place those desires within you so that you know how to trust Him. And in doing so, we can see God do great and mighty things. So I want to remind you today to remove the limitations that you placed on God and watch how He shows up in your life and give you some desires so big that only He can accomplish it for His glory. So have a blessed day.